Behind me is the entrance to the exclusion zone, an area over 1,000 square miles surrounding the Chernobyl power plant. For the most part, this area still remains uninhabitable to humans.
This is more than 1,000 times the normal level.
We were deep into the ghost town when our radiation detectors started going crazy. So we shouldn't stay in this area for very long then.
Of course, we have to go.
Quickly, we moved on. Our tour guide Dmitry took us further into Pripyat, a city frozen in time. Everything here is just like it was moments after the deadliest nuclear power plant blast in history. A child's doll left behind. Halls at a hospital, eerily silent. Rides sit empty at an abandoned amusement park. For decades, it's been too dangerous to visit, considered deadly. But now, it's beginning to open up for daring tourists. What brings you here to Chernobyl?
I think it's an adventure, the desire of something that's unknown.
Pripyat sits within the exclusion zone, which today includes northern Ukraine and southern Belarus. To get here, we had to move through a series of security checkpoints and sign paperwork, pretty much saying we accept the radiation risk. That's because even years later, radiation can be toxic and has caused illnesses like cancer. Is it safe for us to be here in Pripyat?
Yes, 30 years after the accident, it is safe for us to be here. We just have to remember about the radiation and safety rules.
While the strength and quantity of radiation breaks down over time, in some places levels still remain high. You really can't sense radiation. That's why this is a must, a Geiger counter, which measures radiation.
When the accident happened that night, all the radioactive dust from the reactor went by wind into the west direction. And we are going through this trace. That is why the level of radiation here is higher.
On the days following the explosion, over 40,000 people were evacuated, with the idea they may return in a few days. But as you can see 30 years later, that wasn't the case. People left everything behind in a mad rush as they were being showered with radioactive dust. However, they weren't told of the dangers for over a day.
There is no doubt that it injured their health.
What would have happened to the people here if they wouldn't have evacuated and they would have stayed for another month, another year?
I think people would have taken on a lot of radiation and would be dead.
One of the spots with high levels of radiation is this hospital, where some of the first responders were sent after the accident. Their radioactive equipment left here to decay.
I cannot identify whose equipment this is, but it is probably part of one of the 6 firefighters who died after the accident.
As we continue to get closer to this piece of equipment, the radiation levels continue to spike.
Безусловно, да, они начнут сразу расти.
If we stood near that piece of radioactive equipment for just 45 minutes, we would receive a year's worth of radiation. We continue our journey deeper into the zone and closer to ground zero, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, where it all happened. Today, the reactor has been sealed off by a protective barrier, keeping radioactive materials from spewing out, and much of the radioactive dust and debris from the accident has been cleaned up. This arc-shaped building behind me is called the New Safe Confinement Building. It's over 300 feet tall and spans over 800 feet. It's expected to be a long-term solution to contain radiation and allow for more cleanup. Even though construction is expected to be finished later next year, it's unclear if people will be coming back to live anytime soon.
We don't even speak about people going back to the exclusion zone now. 66% of the exclusion zone can be decontaminated for human life in 100 years, but right now, it's not a good value of money to move people.
But even though humans can't come back permanently, animals have already made it their home.
The wildlife population in the zone appears to be quite healthy.
Sergei Mirny was a chemist who researched the accident site.
The zone has turned into a natural reserve. Much of it is absolutely safe.
However, some scientists continue to find genetic defects in small mammals here, and more research is being done into the long-term effects of radiation. As we leave the area, we pass through these checkpoints, testing our bodies for elevated radiation levels. As I'm cleared to go, it's a reminder of the influence this tragedy had on the world and the consequences of neglect and arrogance.
The Chernobyl accident undeniably changed the way of handling nuclear energy all over the world, in all countries.
I wish on the anniversary that it would make people want to know more about the exclusion zone, to know more about the experience. I hope that it can avoid such disasters in the future.
Keith Kosinski, Channel 1 News.
Now, it's difficult to know just how many people died from Chernobyl. Some estimates put it at 4,000, others at 500,000. So what was it like reporting from the exclusion zone? Well, head on over to channel1.com to hear Keith and Maggie talk about the experience. All right, after the break, we meet some expert hackers, but not quite the kind you're thinking of.